Good afternoon, and it's a great pleasure to be with you here from Cranfield University, the Grenville Turnier Studios. Welcome to the launch of the newly formed CAMS Digital Forum, the new event that we'll be publishing every single month, free to air via Restream and to all of our members as well. We're taking the opportunity to expand CAMS. Actually, it was always known that you were looking at key account management, but what we're looking at now is key account marketing and sales, and bringing together everything that the Centre for Strategic Marketing and Sales does here at Cranfield and bringing it to you in many different ways. So we're really pleased, and I'm really pleased as well to be joined by my co-host here, Sophia. Sophia, I got it right. I didn't mess up.
You did get it right. It's good. We're doing good so far. We're kind of colour coordinating unintentionally as well.
This is my Toby jacket.
Yeah, we've gone for the blue vibe today. So yeah.
Tell us about yourself.
So my name is Sophia, and I am the business development exec for strategic marketing and sales at Cranfield. And within that role, I also head up the marketing for the CAM Forum, which we're now obviously relaunching to CAMS, which we will be telling you more about. So yes, happy to be here, happy to be with Andy. I get to work with Andy on a regular basis. So
who wouldn't be happy about that? I mean, that's got to be great, hasn't it?
Yes, so what we're going to do is we're going to chat to you a little bit more about that and the relaunch. And today, obviously, we're going to kickstart it with a great masterclass for you today. And we've got some guests with us that are online as well. So we'll be happy to introduce them for you as well. They should be appearing on the screen
now. Here they are.
Shortly. Here they are. Okay, so we are going to start ladies first. So I'd like to introduce you to Debbie. And Debbie, if you can introduce yourself to the audience.
Of course. Afternoon, everyone. So I'm really thrilled to be asked to support this event. It's something I'm really passionate about. So not a massively lengthy introduction, but I've 30 years experience in both sales and sales leadership. Cornerstone of my operating model is understanding the customer and being as intimate as we can with understanding their needs and servicing them, and also having a process of continued improvement. So we look at how successful we are and how do we need to alter our approach and our strategy accordingly. So I'm really interested in this topic. I'm really looking forward to the open conversation with the guys, and yeah, really keen to see what I can learn. Thanks,
Amazing.
guys.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And also we have Nico with us as well, all the way from the Netherlands. Nico, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah, thank you. Glad to be here. So yeah, it says Nicolaas, but you can call me Nico. I'm based in the Netherlands, and I'm spending most of my time teaching, consulting, and implementing key account management. My focus there is on the development of strategic partnerships with customers through value creation for their business and value for both supplier and customer. I'm working with Cranfield now for about 6 years. And before that, I spent most of my time in the information and communications technology industry, starting from logistics to IT management, and from there into global strategic account management, and subsequently into industry marketing. So I'd like to blend my complete background in helping customers to achieve new perspectives, but especially for my customers to achieve new perspectives with their customers and change their roles, change their conversation, and change their opportunities.
Amazing. And some of our members actually might remember you as well from the event that we had last year. They might have met you in real life as well. So yes, might be a familiar face to some of our members. But you know what? Something really randomly I've just remembered. Nico, do you remember when I asked you if you knew or had ever seen Max Verstappen because you're from the Netherlands?
Well, there are 18 million people of us in the Netherlands, so I've only seen him fly by from the stands at Zandvoort Formula One circuit, but I never met him in person.
I know, it makes me sad.
Please don't, whatever you do, ask Javier if he knows anybody from Real Madrid,
Oh, does
because
he
he possibly
actually?
doesn't. No.
Oh, okay.
Go on.
Right. Well, that leads us on nicely to Javier. If you'd like to introduce yourself to the audience, that'd be amazing.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Andy. My name is Javier Marcos. I am a professor of strategic sales management and negotiation at Cranfield School of Management. So as the title suggests, the work that I do, the programs that I deliver with colleagues, and the research that I am involved covers the spectrum from value creation through to value distribution. And today is a topic that brings me back to my previous life, so life before academia, when I used to work for a large multinational FMCG company. And my job was, a part of my job was to recruit salespeople and marketing specialists. And it was a very interesting context where I would, through this particular role, try to bring about an enhanced level of collaboration. And I remember that one of the ways we address, and we may discuss this later today, was to ensure that both of those communities understood what each other did. So we actually did, as part of the onboarding process, ask marketing specialists to spend time selling, on the road, as we call it. And indeed, we asked salespeople to spend some time in the marketing office, doing all of the product marketing and the communications, digital marketing, and so on and so forth. So I'm looking forward to a dialogue today and to explore with our two panelists how sales and marketing can actually work together to bring about enhanced organizational and business effectiveness.
Amazing. So, with all that knowledge, Andy, that we've got behind us.
Yeah, and just so you know, we lovingly like to call Javier the boss, because he is actually the boss. So if this doesn't go well, this might be the last one we do. We have prepared. We've got 19 questions down, but we actually decided that we were going to open with a really, really simplistic question. And Javier and I were out in Montpellier at a conference last week, and one of our colleagues talked about sales and marketing interface. And he said, well, for 19 years, what we've been doing is actually researching the problem. Wouldn't it be great to break through and start to have some academic research and thinking about the solution? So what I want to do is just throw it to all the panel. Sales and marketing interface, is it important? Discuss. Give us your views, because let's just throw ourselves deep into the conversation. So Debbie, what do you think? Is it worthwhile or not?
I think it's absolutely critical. I think if you think about the investment that large corporates, well, any company makes in their marketing material, being able to get that to the customer, the right customer, for that marketing campaign to be targeted at incremental revenue, it is critical. And I think for me, it's about collaborating. Even if that isn't a natural collaboration in your organization, is to foster an opportunity for marketing and sales to meet. Because I think when that happens, we all learn things. We learn more about what marketing have got in their plan, and they learn about how sales are challenged, or some of the opportunities they're trying to get to. And so, that really starts the ball rolling. So no, I think it's critical. I think just lastly on it, because I'm sure others have got something to say. I think often there is a disconnect. Marketing can mean different things in different places. And sales kind of has one objective, which is to grow or retain revenue, retain customers. And I think it's kind of understanding where you are on that journey. But no matter where you are, the biggest piece of advice is to foster that collaboration.
That's brilliant. Nico, come in with your views. What do you think?
Well, like Debbie said, I think it's absolutely critical. And where I'm coming from is from the perspective of the customer. So both marketing and sales have the objective to support the growth of your company. But then how does the customer look at us? And what I see is that the customer often gets two very different views or perspectives of their supplier, one from marketing and one from sales. I think that can be very confusing. Secondly, we're talking about sales as an organization, but also as a responsibility. And in an omni-channel world, we see that more and more of the actual revenue generation moves to tools or marketplaces that are often not managed by sales and often managed by marketing. So, in the whole trend of moving more to revenue management, I think that collaboration between marketing and sales is essential. And in the support of the customer journey, it is critical as well.
Great, really appreciate that. And Javier, have you got anything to add to Nico's comments as well? Because we're hearing a lot of probably key words here, critical, collaboration, these words that sort of get thrown around on a day-to-day basis, but really it is about tying them together and making sure that, everybody's got the same goal and that we work together effectively. And Javier, what are your thoughts on what's been said so far? Are you in agreement? Do you have a slightly different view?
I'm in agreement, and I tend to use this term that sales and marketing are the two sides of the same coin, and the ultimate purpose and the work that both functions do is to create customer value. What we see is that the larger the organizations, the more ubiquitous, the touch points, or the wider the touch points and the customer journey, the more alignment has to support the work that these two organizations, the sales and the marketing one, has. So I tend to start thinking in terms of customer value creation processes rather than whether it's sales or marketing. And probably as the discussion today evolves, we will find that there are other denominations, other roles that may emerge as the natural result of having a more aligned marketing and a more aligned sales function.
Yeah, definitely. And also, we'd love to hear everybody's comments online. Some of you might touch base with your marketing team or work more heavily with your marketing team. And unfortunately, we can't take voiceover messages today, whatever the phrase is, but we can take them on text, and Andy here can read them live, and we can obviously ask the panel for their opinions on your questions as well. So that's what it's all about. We'd love to get your views and any advice that the audience have for us as well, and how it may work for them.
Absolutely, it's interactive. But back to the panel. So let's have a bit of fun with this one. Debbie, when we prepared, you said you were prepared to talk about the good, the bad and the ugly.
Oh.
Come on, talk us through where it didn't work in your experiences.
Thanks, Andy.
Stitch them up.
So let's talk about the bad. The bad is the disconnect, really. There aren't any bad actors here. It's just where the strategies don't align, or the marketing function isn't supporting the business and sales strategy. And I think that can happen certainly in a very product focused organization, but where sales are trying to drive more executive engagement maybe, and looking at ways of getting closer to their customer, or identifying new customers, and what stories and use cases can be brought to them. So I think marketing have got a great opportunity, and where it's worked really well is where marketing have got the time or the luxury or the connections to understand the big picture. That might be an industry segment, it might be an opportunity around a growing or a new niche in the tech space, for example. But where it works really well is where you've got that marketing start to really drive insights and value for the sales teams to utilize. And then once that starts happening, you get some really great situations where you've got marketing putting on events, using that big picture knowledge, bringing in some interesting and key individuals to support a sales engagement, and looking at how we really create that big picture for the engagement, not just one avenue of conversation with the customer, but multiple touch points, and really adding some value to that customer.
That's, Nico, have you had, let's be honest, you've probably seen a few train wrecks. Without giving names, where's it not worked for you?
Well, especially when you see companies that are in transition that really feel, okay, we have been working, let's say, as a very product oriented organization. We're very proud of the technology that we sell, but the market is changing, the customer expectations are changing, and the customer is really looking for, but how does it help me? How does it help me in my company, my processes, my business? And that's where I see a big disconnect, where sales is trying to get more into the business value conversation. But everything that the company communicates, especially through marketing outings to their website, is all about the product. So the company projects a very inside out perspective where the customers are really looking for the relevance to their business. And that's where I think that marketing and sales can work together to really change that message. One of the things I really like about marketing is the type of conversations, the stories that they can build. And stories really resonate. So if marketing helps sales to really tell stories, and sales helps marketing to really understand what is bothering my customer, what does my customer really need, what are they really looking for, not necessarily what they're asking for. That dialogue can create great solutions, great stories that really resonate and show relevance to the customer. And I think that's where many companies are struggling, especially in terms of a transition moment where they need to change the way they interact with their customers.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah. Sorry, Debbie, go on.
I was going to say, I just really want to pick up on one of the points you made there, because I think the stories are really important. We often don't capture the use case well enough. We don't, from a sales perspective necessarily, look to work with our customers to build that, what went well, what's the solution delivering to your business, and then feeding that information back into marketing for them to repurpose, whether it's having a bank of, this is what we've done before, just for, helping sales campaigns and account planning, or whether it's actually to use some of that material for social selling, having a great story to tell on LinkedIn or publicizing it on your webpage. So as you were saying, Nicholas, it's about, trying to go from, great technology or great product to actually what's it done for customers and what can we reference? Because ultimately, when you talk to a new customer, they kind of want to know where have you done it before? How did it work? What went wrong? Can I talk to somebody? And having that kind of material readily available can really help shorten the level of engagement with the customer and for them to really understand what you can do as an organization. So use cases.
I think you're spot on there. I was going to talk about storytelling, so that's that one, Deb. Thank you very much, Debbie. Javier, we're talking about stories here. How does sales and marketing bring stories to life that resonate to the really important customers that we have?
One of the ways in which they make stories that resonate is when there is what I call an ambidextrous approach. So marketing takes a focused view of the customer, and sales takes a broader view of the market. The reason I say this is because if you think about, there are three types of criticisms that both functions use with each other. And if you look at some of the work that Neil Rackham did on the war between marketing and sales, the first one is typically about execution. So when sales are not as expected, or when the forecasts are not met, marketing tends to blame sales for poor execution. The second is about pricing and budgets. When sales are not as expected, sales tend to blame marketing for putting out prices that are not in line with the market expectations, or prices that are probably overconfident in terms of what customers are willing to pay. And the other one is, as I mentioned at the beginning, is the focus. So marketing tends to blame sales for being too focused on specific accounts, and vice versa. Sales, say to marketing, actually, that you are too broad, too generic, and you don't know my customer. I know my customer better. So those are some of the narratives that you hear when the sales and the marketing organizations are not properly aligned and on the same boat.
Brilliant. We have prepared for this, but what we didn't tell our glorious panel is there would clearly be questions coming in from the audience. And Sophia, you have one from
Yes, Brazil. Yeah.
Brazil, global reach, guys.
We're
There we
going
go.
worldwide. Yes, we have a question from Emerson. So thank you so much for sending your question in to us. So I will read it out for the panel and for you, Andy, so we can see who can best answer this for you and can get a mix of opinions, I guess. So Emerson has said, here in Brazil, we work by developing projects that will help the client with their needs or pains. In other words, we want to be recognised by the client as a solutions partner. And this creates a favourable environment between client and company. The problem is that the client's culture is that we always do something out of interest. How can we change this culture in the client and get them to think about the long-term partnership? Great question.
Or I think Nico's itching to answer that. That's really right up Nico's street. So how do you change the culture of your customer so that they don't think you're operating in interest?
Yeah. Well, the customer really treats you based on the perception that they have of your past behavior. And from there, they see you in a certain light. And it is that you need to break. So you have to change that perception. And that is extremely difficult. Whether it's a culture or a perception, I don't know at this point. But definitely the perception needs to be changed. And you can only do that by showing the customer a completely different side of yourself. That's a journey, because you have to find out who are the people that I need and like to connect with. What really resonates with them? What is keeping them up at night? Or what is basically on their agenda at the moment in terms of objectives or initiatives? And how can I contribute to that? And there is a very nice customer centricity model from IBM. And some of the phrases they say is, look, you need to know me, not only on a business level, but also on a personal level. And from there, not only deliver for me, but advise me and inspire me. So the biggest change of changing the culture with the customer is maybe even changing the culture in your own organization, that certain actions need to be taken without immediate return in sales or sales pipeline or orders. It is especially that perception that the customer has, where they feel that everything you do is just for them to place an order, is what puts you in that space. If you can change that by we're really looking to create mutual benefit, starting with your benefit and showing what we can offer from knowledge, from experience, like Debbie said, cases, where have you done it before? And one of my customers asked me at some point, stop asking me what I want or what I need, but tell me what I'm missing. What should I be asking for? And based on everything you see in the market and working with other customers, what should I be asking for? Perhaps that's a starting point. But I'll be interested to learn a little bit more about your situation to give you an even more detailed answer.
Oh, that's good.
Debbie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's that journey, as Nico said, but from just being a supplier to being that trusted advisor. Maybe that's an overused term, but it's what do you need to do to change the perception of you and your organization in that customer. I've got a few examples of where myself and the team have done that. The other point that Nico makes is you are going to have to take a step away from the sales activity, which means there might be an expectation of reduced revenue during that time, because you are looking at broadening the engagement and becoming a partner. And also look in your kit bag. That was one thing that we did, was to look in, what else have you got? What else does your company do? Do your other customers do, that you can bring to the table and say, look, I can help advise you, or I can introduce you to this set of customers who work in a very similar industry, who might be able to give you some insights into how they made a transition in a particular strategy, or with a particular program or product. So it's really a case of looking at, what else can I bring to the table? How do I show and demonstrate over time that I really want to be that trusted advisor, and I've got something of value to bring to the table. And just lastly, sometimes it's also about increasing your engagement with the customer. Maybe your engagement is very thin, it's only into one group or one program, so expanding that into multiple different touch points across the customer, and really understanding your customer from not just the traditional engagement, but maybe looking at how they take their products to market. What are they doing around things like sustainability? Lots of other angles that maybe you can explore.
That's brilliant. So actually kind of passing the baton over to Javier, I think there's a key point in that, Javier, that was about how you expand your relationships in your key accounts. How do you see the good happening there? Where's some good best practices around that?
One of the things, and also linking back to Emerson's question, is when you actually build an approach to deal with a customer that is aligned. One of the things that we see sometimes, unfortunately, more often than we wish, is you put a lot of effort into a particular relationship, but there is no reciprocity from the customer, and we call that the supplier delusion. So we always advocate that following your segmentation, you try to understand how your customer is segmenting you as a supplier. So that's the first thing, that you want to make sure that when you nominate a particular account as a high growth account or a strategic account, they also see you as a strategic supplier, because otherwise there would be low level of alignment. The second question is to bring the relationship back to the moment of truth. What I call the moment of truth is when the customer meets the supplier and vice versa. And one of the questions I ask organizations is, is your compensation and your success model, the way in which you measure performance or success, in line with those ultimate goals of creating value? As we know, some organizations have mechanisms that incentivize short-term gains as opposed to long-term value creation. So going back to Emerson's question, I wouldn't be surprised if your customers is judging you critically because what they perceive and what they see is a sexist focus on a short-term achievement, typically of sales targets, as opposed to a more longer-term intent to engage across different levels, across different functions, to really bring the best to their organization.
That's brilliant. So we have a kind of comment here with a question at the end of it. It's a question that you'll all be able to nail. So Melina, thank you very much for this comment. Firstly, she loves the conversation and thinks you're all correct and true, which is always great to have the audience validation that you're not barking. There's a real disconnect between real conversations that sales are having with clients and a website, which is a window for solutions, which talks in a language that is not the client's or the buyer's actual language, but the firm's own tech language, which I do agree, lots of tech terms on there. Having marketing that actually puts all solutions into the context of clients, as opposed to talking about the solution's features, is critical in her view. The ultimate question from all clients she's ever talked to is always whether what's in it for me. The other element worth noting, she says, is the real shared accountability to sales generation. Too often, she has been in a situation where sales are clearly targeted with a sales quota. I think this is back to your simplicity of outcome, Debbie. but where marketing departments are not clearly targeted on a measurable ROI or deliverables. I can actually see Vasilis and some of my marketing colleagues in my ear going, whoa, let's have a coffee. But her question is, are we missing customer success? Customer success must have a voice at the sales and marketing table. They manage retention and they hear the voice. Who wants to pick that one up first?
I'm happy to.
Go for it, Debbie.
So it's part of that storytelling piece. It's understanding and being able to tell the story about what you've done for a customer and that relationship over time. Now, the customer success piece, I think, is really key. I guess if I look at my tenure, we didn't really have customer success leaders in the business when I first started, and it was kind of down to the sales team to, build those stories. But I think the customer success piece is absolutely key. We've got to go back and keep validating. Are we, how good are we? What's our score out of 10 with our customer? Are we still delivering on the promises that we made when we signed the contract? What does good look like for the customer going forward? We could be 6 or 12 months into a contract, having the opportunity to understand what good looks like going forward, I think is critical. And for me, the customer success model, whether you do that as part of the sales engagement long term or whether that's the marketing function, I think that's key, absolutely key. Quite often, from a sales perspective, you sign the contract and then you kind of move on sometimes and don't always go back and validate the value, which is critical.
Javier?
I'd like to address one element of the comment and the question, which is the measure. How do you measure? Well, if you look at good measures, and I like to think in terms of good, great, and greatest. Good measures, typically the research that exists on the impact on business performance of the degree of collaboration between sales and marketing is typically measured in terms of sales revenue, also the percentage of quota or sales target achievement, and also the ability to generate sales from new products. And I think those are fine measures. But better measures are the ones where you actually measure revenue growth that is directly attributed from collaborative efforts between sales and marketing. The second one that I find revealing is the lead conversion rates that emerge from collaborative campaigns where there is joint effort between sales and marketing. And the third one, of those great measures are the satisfaction metrics, assessed, for instance, by Net Promoter Score. If you then go deeper, and now in the area of key account management, what I find very informative is the share of wallet. In other words, how much revenue does the customer spend on your product portfolio or your solution or your service. The other one is the number of innovative projects that the customer is willing to engage. And those are typically very good symptoms of a very strong and a very well-aligned and well-designed collaboration between sales and marketing.
It's fantastic. Nico, what are your thoughts?
I think that customer success is a critical component of support of the complete customer journey and is now a true harder element, a critical element, maybe even in total revenue generation. So when we look at when is the customer actually getting value from what they bought, typically not at the moment of signing the contract, not at the moment that the product or the service is maybe delivered at their doorstep or maybe even integrated into their computer system. It's really when they start using it and running into challenges or looking for how to get the most out of it. And I think that's where customer success really creates the value in use for the customer of whatever it was that they bought. And I think that we can measure the success of customer success in the renewal rate, in the upsell, in maybe the cross-sell based on the actual experience of the customer working with you as a supplier and getting a very good feeling from that and wanting to invest more in the relationship with you. So from that, I think that customer success definitely deserves a seat at the table.
I like that.
I do too.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. So you're thumbing through some question cards.
I was
You
like,
were.
who should I pick on next? We have a good bunch of questions. I think these questions obviously can be answered by all of the panel really. But again, I mean, a lot of it we've covered and we've mentioned as well, talking about alignment and things like that. But I think a nice question as well, which again I think could be suited to all of the panel, is how are you currently sort of measuring your success? So the success of sales and marketing collaborations, how would you say that that was measured? And any metrics that you might focus on to be able to see how they are working together?
Or indeed, how should it be measured? Give us your view. Debbie's
Well,
smiling.
I'll be more than happy to kick that one off. But you know, there are so many different situations. And I think it all starts with what is the goal that you're trying to achieve. And the specific goals that I was trying to achieve when I was in that role was changing the perception of the customer, changing the conversations that we have with the customer, and through that change in the relationship, get access to completely new lines of business, new stakeholders, new budgets for that matter, that otherwise would not even think about taking a meeting with us. You hear often, well, I'm trying to get in touch with that or that executive, but they're not taking our call. No, because they don't see any value in talking with you. So going back to my earlier comments, changing that conversation and changing that perception through really knowing your customer. So that's research that often is done by marketing or parts of marketing, turned into points of view of where an industry is going or where an economy is going and the effect on that industry. What that means for your customer in that situation and what your point of view is on how the customer could deal with that. And that translated to the different stakeholders. You have a very different conversation with a COO versus a CFO. So that points back to personas and persona management and profiles and careabouts and value drivers. So I think that creating those stories and enabling sales to have those conversations to change the perception of the customer and getting access to different stakeholders is where the collaboration is most needed. And how do I then measure that? Well, do we get that meeting with that new stakeholder? Do we get that opportunity to show what we can do for that project or that budget? That's the first measure. Can we get into totally new areas of our customer?
Thank you, Nico. Debbie.
Yeah, I'm definitely picking up on what Nico has said there. For me, there's a parallel and holistic activity that marketing can do around taking the output of the analysis. So if we're looking at tools, that profiling or segmentation work that's been done, looking at our stakeholder engagement in a particular customer, and then really looking at how do we market to them. One thing for me is I always think about the fact that our customers know more about us from what we publicize through our internet pages, what we publicize through global or local marketing campaigns. They know that view of us, but do they really know what we want to tell them? So looking at taking insight and crafting targeted campaigns, targeted digital campaigns using the likes of LinkedIn, for example, to really market to those people with that message, and I think it is all about trying to demonstrate and change the perception that customers have of you as an organization to broaden that level of engagement. And again, marketing plays such a key role in driving that parallel activity to support that sales campaign or targeted account campaign.
Brilliant. Javier, please share.
It's probably one of the most difficult questions that may happen in our dialogue today. How do you measure success? I am an academic, so probably the answer I would provide is it depends. It depends on the context of your sector. But let me explain why I say this. And I would like to use a quote that is attributed to Einstein, who is believed to have said that not all of the things that count can be counted, and not all of the things that can be counted count. For instance, in key account relationships, a key factor that drives success is interorganizational trust. And as we know, measuring trust is very difficult. Does that mean that you don't manage the activities that lead to trust? Quite the contrary. You do, put effort, resources, and your best know-how in building those trusted relationships. But going back to the question about how you measure success, perhaps rather than giving you a measure, I would give you a guideline or a principle. And the principle that I see increasingly relevant is one that balances leading and lagging indicators. In other words, the outputs in terms of profitability, net sales, customer lifetime value, and so on, are typically associated with things that you do with the customer and for the customer. So allow me to leave you with this notion of, when measuring success, try to understand where that success is happening, in which context, and then try to identify those measures and balance those that are leading versus lagging indicators.
I think that's absolutely fantastic, and thank you for all three of you for continuing to be there. Nico.
Yeah, there was one thing that a very simple one could be to agree together, either starting within your own organization between sales and marketing, and at some point together with the customer. What is the real problem that we're trying to solve here? And what does success look like? And if we have a common definition of what success does look like, we can also measure whether we are there or how far away we are from it. And that relates to that many things that people ask for is not what they need. They only ask for what they know. So we really need to start from the problem that we are trying to solve rather than the solution that we're trying to put in place. But we do need to find out together what in the end the solution to that problem looks like.
Well, I think that's, again, a great comment. It leads you straight back to the Ford comment, isn't it? If I ask customers what they want, they'd have just told me faster horses.
Yep.
Very, very true. So in the context really that sales is changing, at an event I was at yesterday as kind of a practitioner and a fledgling academic, I was lucky enough to spend even more time with Matt Dixon, who you may know from the Challenger Sale, the Challenger Customer, and recently the Jolt Effect. And he talks about, I don't know if the audience have read the Jolt Effect at all, or seen it in some of the summaries on Blinkist, etc. But what he talks about is that today, that you can get the world, your customers, to a place where they understand the fear of missing out. They basically say, okay, I understand the status quo isn't good enough. But then the real problem is fear, actually, believe it or not, Sophia. People get really uncomfortable with the viewpoint that if I make this decision, it's my signature, and if it all comes back on me, I'm the one that's effectively out of the company. So then you get this indecision, this ghosting, which leads to HubSpot saying 52% of all deals end in no deal. What I'd be really interested to hear from the panel about is, in this world where you have to invert now, you get halfway along the process that customers they're clear, they want to do something, they get it, but then the whole organization kind of starts to go into reverse and get insular and worried. How does sales and marketing work together to actually potentially overcome that, but in the context that giving them more information isn't what they're looking for? So how do the trusted advisors actually walk people towards the decision from the decision to the actual signature? What's your thoughts? Javier, we'll start with you.
I think this the answer to the question has three dimensions. One is the strategy. I believe the second one may be about how you set up the organization, and the third one is about the roles. So if I start with the first one, strategy, I think that what you're describing, Andy, can be addressed by putting a lot more emphasis on the fundamentals, and the fundamentals are to define carefully what your most attractive segments are. This is what we are seeing in account-based marketing, an enhanced focus on a specific high-value accounts. Then when it comes to the operations, and this is something that we have discussed, haven't we, is the idea of creating a cross-functional process that we could describe as revenue operations, where really the focus of the resources and the different activities is in creating new revenue streams. And the final one, which has already been mentioned, is this notion of incorporating new roles such as customer success teams. It may be that that's the best way to incorporate what marketing and sales can best offer. And again, I would think in terms of those, the strategy at the firm level, the kind of organization that will deliver against that strategy, and some of the roles that will best support that delivery.
Thank you for that. So Debbie, I'm going to kind of add something on, because you and I have worked together for a long, long time. We spent a lot of time, and I'm sure Nico will identify this in another large IT, spending a lot of time actually thinking about implementation plans, thinking about professional services, and that plays a role. So how do that you as a manager, you led an entire kind of as a leader, you led lots of people. How did you use that type of thing to overcome the inertia within organizations?
Yes. So I think obviously when you're in that situation, there's two sides to that. One is when you're faced with that, you've got to go back and go, what have I not covered? What have I missed here? Is it, have I not identified the value chain correctly? Have I not emphasized the business case? Where does that problem lie? And does it lie with the role of the team that I'm engaged with, or does the problem lie somewhere else? And have I missed that? Have I not engaged the CFO? Have I not engaged the head of operations? And you've kind of got to decide, what's causing the pause. It's not to say you can always overcome it, but often it's the case that there's been a gap. Obviously, when you've got a large team of people, the optimum is that you're covering those gaps before you get to them. So creating an engagement plan and a partnering map that the team kind of follow. I mean, they don't need to follow it religiously, but have we talked to them about this particular thing? Have we engaged the customer in use cases? Have we actually built a solid business case to support the services engagement or the product engagement that we're embarking on? Have we understood revenue flow? Have we understood budgets correctly? Is our solution going to come in, and quite often when you're looking at large complex contracts, your solution might span multiple different budgets. So have we articulated that correctly? So I think, it's kind of bringing in everything that we've already spoken about, really, and having, an engagement plan, not an account plan, but an engagement plan about how we are marketing ourselves, marketing our solution, and how are we partnering with our customer around this. One idea that kind of sprung to mind is when we look at that engagement plan, have we got a mission statement around what we intend to deliver with the customer? Have we, jointly as a supplier and a customer, created a what good looks like, between us, and use that as your, if you like, your kind of validation point at every stage through the engagement? Are we delivering to that mission statement that we jointly set out? So yeah, I would say two scenarios. One, you find yourself in it. Let's go back over and make sure we've actually articulated the value of what we're doing to the right people and the right stakeholders. And if you're managing a large team, how do you kind of create that model from day one, and it's having that engagement model and partnership template that everybody uses when they're engaging with a customer.
Thank you, Debbie. So, Nico, you don't get off as likely to follow the other two because Sophia has a specific question for you from the audience.
Yes, we do. So thank you to Ian for sending your question in to us. And it's one of those questions, a really simple question, but you know, it's one that's really, really important. And it's when time is not on your hands, how do you accelerate the journey? Is that even possible at all to accelerate?
Nico, when time is not on your hands or not on your side, how do you accelerate the journey if you can?
Yeah.
Ian, that's an absolutely well, it's a brilliant question, and often time is not on our hand. So, as part of what we typically do in finding where can we find the quick answers or where can we find the large answers, if time is not on our hand, it's going for the quick, and it's not the big ones. The big ones take their time. They need their time, and they can only be accelerated if the customer is willing to accelerate. I mean, we cannot dial the customer up to accelerate. So I'm afraid I don't have a very easy answer for you how to accelerate, because it can only be looking at what is holding the customer back. Is the time pressure on us and the customer is just taking the normal time? Or is the time pressure because the customer is taking their time? And then taking it back to also Debbie's answer, we all make a plan. But like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they're punched in the face, which basically means that you need to make a new plan. And in my experience, then it's about the relations that we have in the customer, and especially at the level of social interaction. Other people we can have a beer with, or another drink, or a little bite to eat, that are willing to tell us what's going on inside the company and what is holding some of the decisions back, or what are the hurdles, or who is afraid to take a decision because of a risk they cannot basically mitigate in their mind, even with all the information that we have provided. Especially in the customer, where there are many people involved in the decision, and as solutions are getting more complex, I mean, sustainability, cybersecurity, you name it, all needs to be involved now. So what do we need? What hurdle do we need to remove to get at least the progress that we're looking for, but definitely also the acceleration? So I think through formal processes, we will probably not find it, but through informal network processes, social interaction is probably where we will find the answer.
That's a brilliant question. Thank you, Nico. To everybody out there, particularly people on the marketing side and the marketing roles, the panel are looking well too comfortable. So if you want to ask some really difficult searching questions, now's your time. We've got about 20 minutes to go. Javier, we have another question from Sophia from the audience for you.
Yes, so we've got Emerson, who's actually from an amazing organisation, Pfizer, and he's got some comments for us here, which would be really interesting if we can get your thoughts on this, Javier, and of course the rest of the panel. So he said that here at Pfizer, we are implementing ABM, so account-based marketing, but we have two issues during this process. One is that marketing finds it difficult to work with a focus on customer needs because their strategies are focused on its product and sales. And two, it's very difficult for the integrated account team to interact, i.e. for everyone to work with the customer at the centre. So, you know, it's great to have an insight into their world and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, Debbie, do you have any thoughts on them comments and any advice that you could share?
So I think it's down to being actually actively, proactively creating the opportunity for both the sales team and the marketing team to collaborate. I think tooling is when the tooling works, it's fantastic, but you need to set the ground rules for that tooling between the sales teams and the marketing teams. Otherwise, you create a gap. You can have the best, companies investing in large scale sales and marketing tools like Salesforce, for example. That's great, but you need the input of the marketing teams and the sales teams to create the priorities. And then once you've got those priorities and you have a regular review to check that those priorities are being met, that the quality of the data going in and the reports coming out are of value to both sales and marketing, then it's kind of a bit of a rinse and repeat for the remainder of the journey. But that initial, I think if the question is, I hear it correctly, you're just starting on that journey, the tooling on its own is not going to do the job. You still need that dialogue between sales and marketing to determine what the tooling needs to give you, and set those parameters.
Yeah, and being more specific in your business, Emerson, I believe that your key challenge or opportunity, let me frame it as an opportunity, is to align the role of 4 key people. So within a company like yours, you have market access, you have medical liaison, you will have your marketing, and you will have also your medical delegates. I think the question is, how do these 4 communities within Pfizer work together to really deliver the best patient outcomes? And then if you think about what that may entail, is going back to a point that Debbie mentioned earlier, is how do you have multiple conversations and multiple engagement across all of the key stakeholders in a, let's say, hospital organization? You will have the hospital management, you will have the clinical groups, you will have the budget holders of the purchasing groups. And I believe that the key is how you align those conversations. Because as you know, in your business, you will find that it's not one key metric. Sometimes the most effective solutions or drugs may not be in the short term the most economical. And then how you actually engage those stakeholders to take what we in other contexts call the total cost of ownership. So not an easy thing to do, but a fundamental one is, again, following those principles of alignment and cross-functional collaboration across both your customer, assuming that your customer is a hospital organization, and your own organization. And then going back to the question that Nico addressed, where do you start if you have limited time? Well, allow me to tell you that from the research that we have done over the years, we often come up with this view that strategic account managers tend to spend a lot of time internally. So if you have limited time, your best bet is to work hard to align your own organization, because that's where you really have leverage, and then bring that alignment in the form of a integrated proposition to your customers. So thank you for that question. Muito obrigado pela questão.
And Andy, on integrated account management, it really also means that you're doing business with the customer on different levels. So you have a transactional business probably going with existing products, existing buyers, where you don't need the account-based marketing. On other areas is where you develop the account-based marketing to achieve goals. And it is starting from those goals and working your way back, and starting with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey already said, telling you what is needed to get there. And the account-based marketing, therefore, may not be sort of the medicine for every illness. It's basically the cure for a specific goal. And then the resources need to be aligned around the activities to achieve the goal. The integrated account plan should start from the goal, the objectives, work its way back, and then explain to the different teams working together how they should work together and what each of their role is in achieving the goal.
That's brilliant. So thank you for that, Nico. Just to, again, the audience out there, either through LinkedIn or through our membership in Zoom, we've got about 15 minutes to go now. So if you would like to either platform send us your text questions for the panel. We'll get them to them just as soon as we can. But back to you with, I think, a really good one when we're talking about so many people involved in talking to customers. What is the challenge?
Yeah, so we've got a really good question as well that we'd like to get your thoughts on, and that's how can organisations effectively balance the need for standardised? Did I say?
Don't worry, keep going. Nobody noticed.
Processes with the flexibility required to meet the unique needs of individual key accounts.
So I think probably Javier, that's one for you, but also for everybody, because it's not just key accounts. But Javier, let's get for you. But Debbie and Nico, if you can start to think of the answer, is how do you have standardisation to, let's be honest, avoid anarchy, but you've got enough flexibility for innovation? So Javier, let's start with you, and then we'll go with Debbie and Nico on the slightly broader one.
Again, a very pertinent comment and question. We term the ability to achieve a high level of scalability, but also a high degree of customer centricity and customization, precisely mass customization. And that's what you want to do. So you want to build capabilities that allow you to achieve economies of scale, but then have embedded into the way you work with your customers that ability to adapt and customize those capabilities to really bring about the impact that you want. And we term this mass customization. How does that happen? From the very start. So the very design of your solutions have to have that spirit, that mission in mind of being able to deploy these solutions in a way that is highly relevant to the specific account that you're looking at. By the way, allow me to say something else. Sometimes your customers may be asking for almost like a tailor-made solution, but that's because they don't know that sometimes the standard one is likely to be the best fit for them. The reasons being the standard solution is tried and tested. It is already well known, and any issue that could come up with that is already anticipated. So what I would do is, again, the answer to the question is adopt this approach that allows you to bring out the benefits of economies of scale, but also customize, but also challenge and question your customers, particularly your key accounts, when they're asking for an excessive level of customization, whether that is in their best interest. Sometimes it may not be the case.
I think that's a very, very good answer. I was hoping for, when you said, allow me to make an observation, that you were going to say, and you two are the best two presenters I've seen since BBC Breakfast this morning. But we'll take the answer. Debbie, what's the slightly wider view in terms of, how do you manage the fact of you need processes, sales forecasts, etc. But how do you balance innovation and creativity within those kind of frameworks?
Yes. So I think there's kind of an age-old challenge in sales around, combining that kind of tactical requirement with the strategic selling piece. And I think if I had £1 for every time someone said to me, how do you kind of like support the tactical and the process piece that we have to do with the innovation and the strategic selling? And I don't think there's a clear answer, quite frankly. But there is a piece here very definitely around, maturing the capability of your sales team and your account managers to be able to navigate that. There's some beauty in the simplicity and the structuring around some of the tactical programs, but you've got to be able to take those and use them and position them in the right way with your customer, or determine that there's only 1 out of 5 different plays that are going to be relevant for your customer and major on those. I think it's going to be forever with us as account managers and sales teams, to say, I can either just go with the very standard vanilla offerings, or I can look to how
we're going to ask them.
And I would say the only other thing to add there is, certainly the opportunity, if you have it, to partner with companies that sell supporting or collaborative technology is huge. So if you find yourself, you've only got, one go-to-market, but you want to broaden your engagement with a customer, who could you partner with? Is it an Accenture or Deloitte partnership? Is it a reseller partnership? How can I become more strategic by partnering with my portfolio of partners, or going and finding a partner that I can work with?
Fantastic. Nico, please share your thoughts around that, the need for processes and flexibility.
Well, two things. So processes and solutions for me are two very different things. In the processes, you can do a lot of standard processes in your account planning, in your integrated account planning, in your research, in your alignment, in your go-to-market documentation, points of view, use cases, case studies that can be very, very standardized. It is then how you use them with the customer that basically is where your flexibility is, where you do not sort of the one size fits all, but you really target which story and which message is for who. But the preparation of all those messages and the material is very standard. When it gets to the solutions, I think the biggest threat to many companies is that business development managers around the world each develop their own solutions for different customers because they feel that is what the customer wants. When you turn it around and you really look at, but what does the customer really need? To the example that you also said, do they need faster horses or do they need a car? Many of them will settle for the car, and many of them will settle for what you advise and inspire them to do. But you have to have a good story. And to that, you have to think about, in the end, also the profitability of maintaining thousands and thousands of bespoke solutions and upgrading them, and a new version of your basic product comes out and all their solutions don't work anymore. In the end, the short-term gain of a highly specialized solution or customized solution can bite you in the butt later on. Where it is really about innovation, my recommendation would be choose the customers you want to innovate with very carefully, and then in that collaboration where they are willing to invest as much in the development with you as you're willing to do with them, see how you can then make that solution part of your standard global portfolio for a particular industry or a particular segment or a particular market. So have a plan, be proactive in thinking of what type of solution would also benefit you in the long run and which customer to develop it with.
That's brilliant advice. So we are unfortunately, Sophia, coming up on time.
Oh.
So, it's time. There is a few more questions, but we don't have time for all of them, so we'll follow those up. But with a minute each, could you just give us your closing thoughts that the audience can take away from today? Debbie.
Okay, so I think we've said it a number of times. Marketing is an absolute critical function from a sales perspective, and I would say take the time and work with them, and do your very best to align marketing to your sales campaign, and goodness will come, most definitely.
Thank you very much. Nico.
Well, in summary, and also based on some of the answers we gave to the questions, marketing and sales are there together to support the customer journey, but I'd like to also bring in services or customer success or anyone who has a customer-facing role supporting the customer journey. And many of them also have a revenue-generating impact. That the collaboration between all those teams is essential in the customer journey and in revenue management. And ideally, when you get to your key customers and especially your top strategic customers, all these organizations need to work together in an integrated plan, customer-centric, proactive, and structured. to make it a success.
Thank you very much indeed, Nico. And finally, but certainly not least, Javier.
I'd like to conclude with something I mentioned today, which is that I see sales and marketing as the two sides of the same coin. And one of the ways to enhance the level of alignment is to have some goals and eventually allocated or aligned or connected to some metrics that both of those communities are accountable for. That will typically drive behavior, that will stimulate the the collaboration between the two, and also, as I alluded to before, create some spaces, either virtual or physical spaces, for what I sometimes call a day in the life of. So allow those individuals in marketing to spend time with customers, with the account managers and the field sales people, and vice versa. Allows his people, to be, back in the office where marketing typically, does its magic, because those are very, very powerful and very vivid and very experiential ways of understanding each other's. That's, what I would like, to suggest as a very easy to implement, but very powerful practice in organizations where there are, those two seamlessly separate communities.
That's brilliant, and I'm looking directly at Debbie, who used to work for an organisation where its initials were "Everyone meets customers," so that's kind of ingrained that everybody had to go out and meet customers, which is brilliant. If we can keep everybody on the screen, have you enjoyed this, Sophia? It's been fun.
Yeah, I think we're a good tag team, don't you? Yeah,
I don't know how to answer that.
I think it's been good fun.
No, I think we are. It's been great, and I can't wait to do this on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I hope everybody else out there has thoroughly enjoyed this. To recap, this is very much a vehicle for Cranfield University. And the reality about it is that we want to expose some of the great things that the Centre for Strategic Marketing and Sales does via this vehicle. But if you want some more from us, there is a way to join and be a member, to come into one of the 3 streams, whether that be key accounts, marketing, or sales leadership. We want to demonstrate some of the great research and materials we have. One of the takeaways actually is Javier and I have actually already, believe it or not, actually penned a booklet around sales and marketing interface in SaaS-based organizations. So if you want a copy, go hunt down Sophia and we'll get that to you. I want to say to you guys as a panel, Debbie, Nico, Javier, it's been really, really good fun. And I cannot believe no one's taken a whole bunch of stuff away with this. And the power is clearly to reflect on that. So I want to thank you for helping us launch this wonderful new world. And I want to thank everybody out there. We've had somewhere in the region of 500 people engage across the 2 platforms with us on this event, which just proves, I think, that this is what the world wants for. And it is a great way to Cranfield to break the boundaries, Javier, as we talk about, between academia and practice, which is really what Cranfield University is all about. So, great comments. People saying, absolutely valuable call. We really, really were pleased about it. Give us your ideas about how we improve it. And lastly, we want to wish you a wonderful, wonderful day and a wonderful back end to the week and into a great weekend.
Yeah, definitely. So as Andy said, any questions, get in touch with us via email or LinkedIn. Be picked up by me probably. So
Not
no
me.
problem.
No, you're right.
It'll be me. The marketing, you see. Thank you again to the panel and for your questions and for watching and being here with us today.
And as importantly, thank you to Chris, Marco, Robin, Toby, David at the back, who are wonderful. This is a great resource within Cranfield University. So thank you to these guys who iron out every single glitch and even halfway through allowed Sophia to brush her hair off camera. So thank you particularly for that one, Robin. That was great. So all of you, thank you very much. Have a safe one. This is from Cranfield CAMS. See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.